All right, we talk about the homework 4, part 4. Uh, I'm going to use the example models from 10.4, chapter 10.4 to make a modification. I don't want to start from scratch, so I'm going to change this model from homework 4, part 4. Okay, to begin with, change the model. Go into the model. Uh, in this original example, we have uh, just one ordering system. Here in the homework, we have actually 5. So I'm going to make a modification directly from here. I'm going to drag over this a little bit. See if we can do that. And then here we have, we call it from, source from store 1. All right, and dragging over here. Couple things we need to do. Actually, we have an inventory, current inventory on file. Actually, here is, if you see that is a state inventory. I'm going to go to the state variable here, the inventory level. I'm going to call this guy local stock. Okay. But since before we have only one inventory, one order, and we only have one of this store. Now we have 5, so we need to kind of change this a little bit. Instead of using one variable, I can using 5 separate variable. Even more convenient, I can use a vector to represent 5 different variable. Okay, 5 different stores. So here we can have 5, 6, 7, and those are the things we can use. And here, what we're going to use, this is the first store, and that will fix that. And then I'm going to make okay. See if it works. A little bit. This is store 2, and this is for the second store. Getting 3. Line up a little bit. For store 3. All right. And this is store 4. Same thing. This is for store 5. So that's pretty easy, straightforward. Now to just replicate what we have. Okay, and then I'm going to connect all of them into this order processing. All right. So that's all we have so far. we finished the store. Pretty much that's the part for the store order. Of course, we're going to keep this instead of a warehouse. We're going to have a so-called the warehouse part. We call it. Actually, we don't have to use. We can use workstation. Convert it into a server. Okay, and we use using this is also a server. And we're going to call the server fill store order. Okay, so this is the server actually doing for the warehouse replacement. Here for each one of the store we have, okay, I have certain assignment to do. Since now each one of the store generate different their own entity, I'm going to have one more model entity state variable set up, which is integer. Okay, I'm going to say store number. Okay, we can use the store number, we can use other nim, whatever you like. Is the store number, which is you generate from each one of them. So here we're going to have a fairly quickly generate over here the store, and not only I generate the amount, I also generate a so-called, here's model entity store number equals to 1 or something like that. Okay, I can do as such, or I can create a generic processor. Okay, add a process. I'm going to define a token. For example, I'll call them my token again. We did this before. This token has one state variable called which store. Okay, we did this, and default is 1, for example. All right, I'm going to use this token to run a generic process, and here we have a process. This process, we're going to call this store source store. Okay, exit. When they exit, we're doing a couple things. First, we assign a, here we're going to have this owned by a, instead of a regular token, using my token. Add one of them, it's called store number. Okay, and get his name to which is store. Okay, we did this before, so I do it real quick. So I'm going to assign this process is owned by my token, and I have a store number transfer over. So here what we have is supposedly model entity store number equals to we call it which, so my token, which store, okay, equals to that. And then I'm going to do, since I'm going to illustrate over here, so I'm using two different things, then I'm going to generate a quantity for that, okay? So each one will have, right now the we don't have a quantity for any of those, and then we just say, hey, we're going to have no quantity. Quantity equals to 1. So here we're going to call model entity order quantity. Okay, order amount equals to always 1. All right. So we do have these two because a customer assume just purchasing one refrigerator at a time. That's how we set up. And then over each one of those, instead of doing these stay assignment, now I have a generic process I can run instead of using the stay assignment. So here, after you create, after you access those, we're gonna do source access. All right. Then I'm going to use source store 1. This guy is the same thing. Store 2. All right. And this is store 3. Again, I'm using one single process to do 5 different source. 3. This is 4. You get the gesture, and then we quickly move on. This is number 4, and that's number 5. Really quick. Good, okay? So January 4, and go to this process. This process, what we do, basically, in the past, all we have to do, we're running after the process is done. I'm not worried about the arrow. I'm going to correct all of them later on. After the process is done, I'm going to do a service order processing. In this homework, we don't have any processing time for the order to be processed. So here I'm going to do a 0. Okay, in that case, I'll reset this. Okay, reset. I'm going to have this is 0. And of course, also I can simultaneously running multiple processes. And I don't have any restriction. Okay, we don't have a restriction on the capacity, so everything comes in and goes out, and no processing time. So this is the way I currently have. Later on, I'll show you how to just eliminate this server altogether and move on using a much simpler. In your homework assignment, you also trying to do is you're trying to have a separate server called sync loss cells. Okay. So if you don't have a refrigerator for them to do, you basically lost the cells. Since each order equals to 1, I'm not too worried about the quantity of the order. So here is sold. Okay, so here is a sold, the other one is lost. Okay, so we can do that. The only thing is, after process, look at the original processes. What I do is, after process, I tally, okay, what is the situation and calculate the service level. And now we can actually see which server they are on, correct? So here we have a model entity. Um, store number, I think. Yeah, store number. This amount is basically 1, so I don't have to do anything on that. So this is great. Either 1 or 0. Okay. And the second thing is adjust the inventory level. So here what we actually do is adjust the inventory level by -1 because I sold one more, because the other this modeling order amount is equals to 1. And the only thing I have is I need to have a parameter here. So it should be model entity store number in that case. All right. So as the things after process, I adjust the inventory and should be amount. Okay. So if the local store is 0, then this will be -1, and then we're going to choose 0 in that case. I'm not going to have any. So here is the part I adjust the local store inventory level, which this part is also can be shared because they all the store using the same logic in the server. So I'm not too much worried about it. The only thing I have is is in this local store. Now I have in the original problem, I didn't check inventory until periodical review. So before we set up a timer element, okay, time review element using whatever time period it is. And this example, we don't do the timer event, which is we don't do periodical review. So every time I sold a refrigerator, basically I do the checking. So pretty much I would like to migrate the entire logic right here, okay, entire logic right here in right after the sales. So after the sales, I do inventory check. So basically I'm going to move everything over. All right. So what do I do is so-called, here I have a local property. I need to change a little bit. Initial, I'm going to using a little bit different local inventory. Okay. And reordering point. This is the local reordering point. Okay. Local ordering point. Okay. And also local order quantity. Here we could have a local order quantity. Now worry about order up to level things. We'll care about that. And we don't have the review period anymore. But also now we have a few things. Okay, for the property, and I'm going to have a couple things. This is the so-called warehouse reordering point. We're dealing with this later. point, and we have warehouse initial warehouse stock. Okay, initial warehouse inventory. Okay, and then we have a order warehouse order quantity. Use that. So we basically have a total of 6, and this reordering point is no longer needed. Delete it, and I can actually go back to delete the timer. I will deal with that later because this part hasn't been migrated yet. So basically what I'm doing is I'm copying everything over to this part. After assign process, okay. After assign process, I check if the local store inventory is model entity. Sorry, let's do this. Store number is less than local reorder point. Okay, so that's it. And then we decide if it is already in order. Okay, here we have a thing is we need to check if we already ordered for it. Otherwise, if the two order come in consecutively, and they might be double entry. So here we're trying to do is we go to that is a vector of, okay, go define a Boolean type of variable. Okay, why don't we call that local reorder already? So it is yes or no question. Okay, again, this is the order of vector of 5. Okay, initially is false, which means it hasn't been ordered yet. So we come back here to decide that. So first we decide we're going to check if the current local store inventory level is less than a reordering point. Okay, and then we kind of decide if it is, which means if the local already order and model entity store number equals to false, equals to true. Okay, if that's equal to true, then we don't need to order. Otherwise, I need to determine if we have enough in the warehouse. So I'm going to move this again. So I'm going to say if the warehouse statistic, which is have to have one more over here call warehouse stock. Okay, the warehouse stock actually, this one is the warehouse stock is greater than 0. If the warehouse stock equals greater than 0 and I need to order it, then we trying to place an order over. Okay, so here I'm going to do a assign, placing local order, and which is right here, model entity dot store number. Okay. Oh, sorry, we're right here. Don't have to do that anymore. Value equals to true. So now I'm going to turn on because I'm ready to order already. Okay, I'm ready to order. Then what I need to do is I want to, similar to this, create a order and then transfer that, create an order and transfer that to the place it's supposed to be. Okay, here similar. Okay. So I'm going to create an order right here. We'll create associate object, but this time we call this guy replenish or warehouse order, whatever you call this, name it. It's basically this guy's over here. Okay, we probably should color this guy red so to be distinguished. Once I create that, and then I need to first getting how many from the warehouse, how much I can order from the warehouse, how many we can subtract that amount from the warehouse. So I need another assign block right here to adjust. So here I have two things, and the first is the model entity order amount. The order amount equals to the two of the following. Okay, it's man between the two value. First value is going to be the local order quantity. Okay, or whatever warehouse we have, warehouse stock. So whichever is minimal. If the local order quantity is smaller than the current stock or inventory stock we have in the warehouse, then we using the local quantity value. If a warehouse has a stock less than the order quantity, then I'm just going to give that to whatever warehouse has into the order amount. And next, I'm going to subtract the information. Okay. So here is this guy. Copy. Adjust the warehouse inventory and equals to the actual order amount for this. Okay, and we're done. After that, I'm going to just transfer this guy to whatever places it is. So basically, it's transfer this from a place to a node, which is input node of fulfill warehouse order. So this is pretty much the first part of the example. And then we don't really need this one anymore. So we can subtract this one. This is no longer needed, and therefore I can delete the timer event as well. So we don't need that anymore. And the rest of this part is very similar from before. Okay, we need to actually set up a couple property for initial inventory and how to copy the initial inventory to the local store. Or for example, here we need to add another process, run on initialize. It's the G of stock right here actually don't have a property. Okay, so we need to actually do that for the rest of them. This one for the second equals to initial inventory of local inventory. Okay, and add, for example, the local stock, the third store also have, you get the gesture of this. So initial local inventory, and then you need to add the third and the fourth. The fourth, and this is initial inventory. And the fifth. And also we need to set up for the warehouse initial. Warehouse stock initially should be the initial warehouse inventory. So these are the things we actually need to do as initialize the simulation. Okay, and so these are the things actually we keep going for that. Well, this is the first part, and the next part we'll come back to talk about the replenishment for the warehouse portion. Okay, but for now I'm just going to cut the video short.